Yeah. Thank you, Amy.
Just to say at this point, if you don't want to be in the recording, please feel free to turn your cameras off if you don't want your face in it.
Yeah, thanks.
We won't be offended.
Yeah, great. And if you do have any questions, there's some time at the end. But if you just want to note the questions down in the chat, like you might sort of forget them or something, then feel free to do that, and Amy will filter those through. Usual kind of Zoom etiquette, if you can just make sure you're on mute if you're not talking, just to reduce any background noise, that would be great. And Amy, if you're all right to keep an eye on the waiting room, as we might have some latecomers, and we'll let them in. Okay, wonderful. So thanks very much for coming along this morning. My name's Tess, and I'm with my colleague Amy from the Centre for Sustainable Energy. And today's session is all around energy efficiency in your community building. And this is part of the Thrive Renewables Community Benefit Programme. So we'll hear from Louise from Thrive in a moment. But today is really a kind of a baseline really for everyone, because I know lots of people will be at different kind of levels with how they're looking to improve energy efficiency in the one building they look after, or like some people in the chat had said, they're actually looking after lots and lots of buildings as well. So hopefully this will be useful to you at some level. So yeah, and yeah, we'll hopefully share lots of resources. We'll send an email out after today with anything that we refer to as well, because there's lots and lots of great tools out there to use to help you with that. Okay, cool. So if you didn't know a little bit about CSE, the Centre for Sustainable Energy, we're an energy charity based in Bristol. We're trying to tackle the root causes of fuel poverty, so the misery that's caused by cold homes, but also tackle this huge challenge that we have at the moment, climate change. So yeah, that's like some of the work that we do is around supporting communities, schools, local authorities to help their kind of action on fuel poverty and climate change. We also have a home energy team. So they're our largest team, which you can see in the photo at the bottom. They're on the phones every day speaking to people who are unable to afford their heating bills, who are living in sometimes quite damp and dire homes. So they are very busy, as I'm sure you can imagine. We also have a research team, so they do lots of sort of data analysis, and they create lots of tools, sometimes for local government or higher government as well, to try and find out ways that we can make our energy system greener, but also fairer, so that people from all parts of society can be brought into our transition that we need to take towards our climate goals. Yeah, and Amy and I work in the communities team, so we run projects like this, we distribute funding, and yeah, work with other charities and schools. So there's about 120 of us, so quite a large charity. We are based in Bristol, but we do work nationally, so you might see us crop up where you are, because I know we've got quite a large sort of cohort across the UK. And what's kind of brought us here today is the Thrive Community Benefit Programme, which Louise will speak about in a moment. But we're halfway through round 7 of this programme. So the funding comes from Thrive Renewables, and then we have an application process where community buildings like yourself, and some of you might be funded or have been funded in the past by this programme. You apply to us with what you'd like to do in regards to the energy efficiency of your local building, and then we distribute that funding out to you. So over the years, we've helped out 50 community buildings with 61 grants, nearly up to £200,000, which is fantastic. But also with that, we're saving sort of potential wasted carbon as well. So creating these spaces that are warmer and safer and just generally nicer for the communities to gather, but also tackling our commitments around climate change as well. So yeah, that's the programme. We hope that we'll be running it again next year, but we're sort of halfway through round 7, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. So if it's okay, Louise, I'll just hand over to you just to speak from Thrive's perspective on this. So yeah, Louise. please take the floor.
Thanks, Tess. I'm going to be very quick on this because I know that the reason all of you are here is because you're looking to reduce cost and make your community buildings warmer and cosier for everybody to use and therefore more accessible. So Thrive Renewables, renewable energy investment company. We run projects all across the country. There's a little snapshot there of some of the projects we've got in development and also built. Wind, solar, some battery storage, deep geothermal down in Cornwall. So we have a kind of a portfolio of different types of renewable energy projects, which what we believe that the country needs to go forward to increase the amount of renewables on the grid, which obviously is going to be very positive from a cost perspective and also from a carbon emissions perspective. We are a mission driven business. We're almost 30 years old now, and because of that, we really want to be kind of good neighbours to the communities that host our sites, and that's why we came up with the community benefit programme. Really, is to support communities that are based close to our sites in both their ambitions for their own carbon footprint, but also to make their buildings cosier and warmer, and that means more different types of people can use them. And I suppose on a personal level, I think that people who look after community buildings are real unsung heroes, and they work incredibly hard to make them as available as possible to the people who need them. And many people are volunteers, and so I suppose before you get on with your session, I suppose just a big thank you really for the hard work that you put in behind the scenes to benefit your community, and enable people to gather together and stay warm. So appreciate that, and looking forward to I will turn my camera off because I'm not the expert on energy efficiency, but I'm looking forward to hearing all of the initiatives that you've got going on, and I would encourage you, assuming that the next round takes place, if you're to find out if you're eligible and apply if there's something that you want to do. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Louise. That's great. Cool. Okay. So kind of in tune with what Louise was just saying, and this was probably might sound quite obvious, but why is it important to look after our community buildings? I'm sure many of you already know this, but our community buildings are really key assets, providing people space to come together. Throughout the pandemic, we've seen those kind of places being, vaccination centres. There's sometimes food banks. With the energy crisis, lots of them have become warm hubs. A space for people to go and stay warm during the energy crisis because they were unable to heat their homes. So they're really key assets, provide lots of services. So they're really important to maintain. But obviously, excuse me, because of the energy crisis, it's been more and more difficult for these communities to stay afloat, essentially. So we really want to make sure that we try and support you as much as possible. So there's a challenge with this, but there's also an opportunity with regards to the energy efficiency in your local area, because whilst it's great to have a warm warm building, we also want to think about the sort of the longer term aspects as well. So in the long run, we need to be meeting our climate goals. So as much as possible, we can try and reduce our carbon emissions. So yeah, that's really kind of a win-win, I suppose, a place where the community can be warm and can be happy, and adds to that kind of social cohesion which we all need and want, but also saving you money quite sort of clearly is a good thing, and also cutting carbon as well. Okay. So this is our energy hierarchy, and we generally suggest this as a good framework to follow when you're considering the energy efficiency of your community space. So it's quite simple, and you might not need to follow it kind of to the letter, but it's a good framework to work from. And we know that community buildings can vary hugely in their age, whether you lease the building, whether you own the building, whether there's any sort of conservation or listed aspects to it as well. So we know that not every community building is the same. However, we generally use this hierarchy, which is what I'll kind of lead us through today, in terms of how to approach the energy efficiency in your community space. So this kind of puts into perspective where you can make the most difference. So like I said, community buildings vary hugely, but they also don't have a specific kind of daily pattern like domestic properties. You know, at home you can set your heating to, you know, when you go out, when you come home, all the rest of it. But the very nature of community buildings is it's ad hoc. You know, you've got yoga one day, scouts the next day, you know, warm hub the following day. The pattern of these buildings is very, very varied. So it's just important to remember that the biggest kind of win you can make or take is with regards to your space heating. If you haven't done this already, we've got our CSE's audit tool, which is a basic walk around audit that you can do. That helps you identify different parts of the building that you could improve on. But yeah, this is just quite a nice graph to kind of show you where you're going to make the wins quickest, as it were. So it's a really good idea to start collecting as much data as possible. So collecting that kind of baseline data for your building is a really good starting point. So perhaps even before you do an audit, it's really good to kind of get your understanding around things like the meter readings, finding out where your meter is for a start might be helpful because they're not always really clear. Looking through your energy bills and seeing where there might be, you know, big peaks in your energy use and therefore big costs. You might already have energy monitors or kind of smart meters that can give you the data a bit kind of a bit quicker and a bit easier. So if you don't have those, you could always start to use those. People, talk to the people who use the building, because as a, you know, whether you're a building manager or you look after lots of buildings, people use energy and use heating as much as the building kind of does. So it's important to understand, you know, how warm is the building, and at different times of the day, are they aware of particular issues in one room or another? You know, have they spotted some damp, that kind of thing. Talk to the people who use your building regularly if that's not already yourself. Another way you can get some really clear data is through thermal imaging. They're becoming more and more popular and more kind of usable. Sometimes your local library, there's been quite a lot of schemes for thermal imaging through your libraries, and it's essentially like a camera. You can either use a camera in and of itself, or there are sometimes adaptations for your smartphone, and you can walk around your building and just check. It shows you visually where the heat loss is going, so it will become quite red where there's more heat loss. So that's quite a nice way of finding out where you're losing heat in your building. Yeah, see if you can log any sort of temperatures, dampness, humidity, all those kinds of things. Just get as much data as you possibly can from all your sources, and that will give you a really good starting point as you kind of go on your journey with this. So thinking back to that framework for the kind of energy hierarchy that we suggest firstly reducing your demand. So thinking about how can you use your energy more effectively. And they're really simple things, but they're also often kind of low cost things that you can almost do, you know, low or no cost at least, that you can kind of do immediately. So things like your lighting, checking that you've got LED bulbs installed, you know, that's just going to reduce your energy bills from the get-go. You can also seek to perhaps put in motion sensors so that lights only come on when they're being used, and you can look at other smart controls around your lighting. So that's just a quick win. Things like appliances. So if you have any freezers, making sure that they are defrosted, you haven't got loads and loads of ice in, because the freezer will have to work harder for that. If you don't have a hot water urn, sometimes that's good. If the space is being used a lot and we all need a cup of tea, then sometimes having that hot water urn is better as well. You know, other things like making sure your appliances are working properly, potentially using like slow cookers instead of an oven for maybe big events, that kind of thing can help as well. Whilst not strictly energy, you can also look at your water use, so fix any leaking taps, dripping taps, all that sort of stuff. That's going to save you some money as well. So energy tariffs, this used to be something that we used to advise on a lot about switching. Since the energy crisis, it's not so common that people are switching around, largely because lots of energy companies no longer exist. However, it might be something that you might want to look at with your supplier. Also, if you are a registered charity, there are certain discounts you can get as well. We'll happily share sort of links to understanding that a bit better after today as well. Other ways you can kind of reduce your demand is try and just keep the heat in the building as much as possible. So finding places that you can draft proof or seal, closing the curtains at dusk or fitting heavier curtains, those sort of things are just going to help the space feel warmer, but will probably also save you some money as well. And just making sure that people who use the building know how to use it. I think that's a really important aspect of this, because there's the classic kind of community building scenario where the heating's on and whatever group who's using the hall say, oh, it's really, really hot, but I don't know how to work the heating system, so I'll just open all the windows. We see that a lot. And obviously that's a huge waste of carbon and money as well. So just making sure that people who use the space understand it and are with you in terms of your energy efficiency. Okay. So then kind of moving up that scale, thinking about reducing your losses, and this is with regards to the building fabric. So thinking about insulation, and we do have a number of fact sheets on each of these as well, which we can share. It's really important to get insulation done properly, because if it's not done well, it can actually potentially increase damp and water retention, which you don't want to do. But yeah, there might be some considerations around roof insulation, wall insulation, floor insulation, but also seeing if you could potentially get any double glazing sorted, or you can get the doors that are really good at keeping the heat in as well, and they shut properly, that sort of thing. If you haven't already done our audit, there is a section on this as well, so you can start to answer some questions. And as you answer those questions, you'll start to think about what you can do with regards to this as well. And some of those questions that we ask in our audit, but you can also ask yourselves or ask the building users, is, are there any drafts? Where are they coming from? Can they be easily kind of blocked with some quite simple measures, seals, or finding those or making those draft proofing snakes as well? They work really well, particularly for any activities like yoga or Pilates or exercise classes where people are on the floor a lot. It's really good to ensure that those drafts aren't coming in. Asking yourself these questions around the roof, the windows, and just trying to get a good understanding of the history of the building. You might not be the owner, or you might have only known the building for a couple of years. Can you understand what improvements have been made in the past as well, so that you've got a really clear kind of history of the building? Okay, so now looking at our kind of largest chunk, if you like, of what we often use in our community spaces, which is our space and our water heating. And remember, this is where you can make a really significant difference. So if you do have a boiler, see if you can get a regular check for that, to just check it's running efficiently. And I think, it's not a particularly expensive outlay to have a boiler serviced, but the cost of it running efficiently will pay for itself quite quickly. So yeah, just making sure that your boiler is working as well as it should be. And seeing if you can get a professional to come in and just check the flow rate, etc. And depending on how your building is used, as I said, all buildings are so different and have little rooms, but sometimes you might not need to have all of the central heating on if you've just got one group using a smaller room, for example. So you might just want a room heater just to heat that space at that time. Again, going through our audit will help you to understand how your building is used and when. So making sure you can understand as much as possible your heating controls. So if there are timers that you can make use of, if you do have a really kind of strict schedule, if you like, you can set your timer just to come on and go off as and when each group is using it. And that's really nice because then the person using the building doesn't necessarily have to worry too much. They're not going to press any buttons that they shouldn't. So see if you can make the most of those. You might have radiator valves in different rooms that you can perhaps use if a room isn't being used so much, making sure they're slightly lower, etc. Yeah, so these are just some ideas for how you can potentially reduce those losses. And as I said before, so point of use water heaters, so they can be more efficient as well for your hot water. So these are all things that you can consider, you can look at, but also they are asked in our audit if you haven't already done them. And yeah, these are some of the questions. So you might know this yourself, but you also might start to understand if you talk to people who use the building a bit more, whether the temperature is comfortable, is the heating even working properly? Yeah, are people complaining about it? Are people not coming to the building because they know it's cold, or because they know it's too hot, or because they know that they don't know how to use the space? Yeah, thinking about whether there's any insulation in the pipework, and are the blinds being used in the winter and the summer? So again, these are kind of questions that our basic energy audit will cover. And we often find that people, when they report back after doing the audit, one or two things they just hadn't even thought about. These questions just start you thinking in the right way. So yeah, I'd really recommend doing it if you haven't already. Okay, so a few other considerations, other important factors. So it's really important to consider the overall health of your building. So is there anything that's quite pertinent that you need to get fixed or sorted first? So if there's any cracks, rotting window panes, anything going on in the roof that's leaking, try and make sure you do those first and foremost. So like they're really, really key to get sorted and quickly. Yeah, making sure there's if there's any moisture or damp building up, making sure that you've got adequate ventilation, so managing moisture correctly, because if you don't, it can really impact the overall health of the building and can lead to a lot more problems down the line. Other things you might want to consider, some of you might be looking after buildings that are particularly old, they might be listed, they might be beautiful buildings like this one, but sometimes if you want to make more changes to those kind of buildings, you need to just check that whether they're in a conservation area, or whether there's certain planning permissions that you would need around that. And you can ask your local planning department about those. They should know and understand that. And then this is a tool that I wanted to show everyone, which is the Sustainable Traditional Building Alliances tool, their guidance wheel. I've just got a screenshot here, but we'll share the link to it. It's a really nice tool to use just to kind of understand how all of these things really overlap. So you can fill out, your context of your building, perhaps the age it was built. You can see the questions that kind of it filters you through here. And then as you, this is obviously just a screenshot, but as you move around this, it kind of shows you some questions you might want to ask, some things you might consider, and how they relate to each other. So if you wanted to have a really kind of deep and detailed dive, maybe even after you've done your audit, I would really recommend this tool. They also have a number of other resources that we can share. But yeah, I think this is a really nice resource. So we'll share that with you. Okay, so the final kind of step of the hierarchy is to potentially consider generating your own energy through a renewable technology. So, solar or biomass, it might be something that you want to consider. So I guess our kind of point with having this on our last rung of the hierarchy is that it's important to understand that you've got the building below the renewable technology, if you like, kind of sorted first. So you've reduced your demand, you've reduced your losses, you've fixed anything that really needs fixing, and then you can think about generating as well. So it's not that you shouldn't explore this, but it's just to make sure you've done everything housekeeping wise before you look into generating your own energy. CSE have a solar wizard tool, which we can send over to you. And this is a tool that you can tap in the postcode of your building, and it will show you the kind of viability for solar. Again, it's just a guide, but it's quite a nice way of seeing whether you've got any potential there. And yeah, at the moment, it's better to use any energy that you generate kind of on site, as the current payback rate for solar is not very high at the moment. So lots of community spaces are sometimes looking at getting batteries installed, and so that they can maintain and kind of keep the energy that they're generating. So that might be something that you want to consider as well. And we do have fact sheets on all of our technologies listed here. You might also want to consider a heat pump. So these are a low carbon form of generating your energy as well. They're becoming more and more popular, and they're getting better. I think heat pumps have had quite a bad press, but I think that's potentially undue. And they're actually getting really, really good for community spaces, because they run a lower rate, so they can be used more efficiently throughout the day as people are using the building in a different kind of way, if you like. So that's another aspect to consider as well. Okay. So some more resources or some things to think about. Historic England have a really good guide on energy efficiency, particularly in more historic buildings, because these beautiful, wonderful buildings that we have aren't very energy efficient. But this guide in particular really shows you how you can still balance out the heritage aspects with the users of the building as well. So I just quite like this kind of this diagram, really, just to show that they're kind of all interlinked, and they can kind of all consider each other. So yeah, I would recommend looking at that. And yeah, it's a balance, really, particularly with historic buildings. You want to keep their beauty and their history, but you also want them to be used. And I think this guide has got a number of case studies in it, which really shows that that's definitely possible. And just because you have a slightly older building or a listed building doesn't mean that, you know, you can't do anything to fix some of the energy efficiency aspects. Okay, so this is quite a big part of your energy efficiency journey, is finding people to do what you've found out needs to be done. So we have a number of kind of organizations here that you can use, and sort of databases that you can find local people. So particularly the MCS, the Microgeneration Certification Scheme, just a bit of a mouthful, but this is quite a good database that you can search per area, per technology, to find the right tradesperson to support you. And again, there's like the Green Register as well. So that's a list of kind of builders or building firms that have done certain qualifications to mean that they are appropriate for community spaces, etc. And there's various other sort of databases here that you can look through. There is a huge skills gap when it comes to community retrofit and domestic retrofit, I might add. And, you know, it would be so much better if, you know, a higher government could support the upskilling of these trades, because that's something that's really, really lagging in this country. So finding an installer is possible, but it can be a little bit difficult to find the right person. So hopefully through this you will, but just know that it is quite difficult to find those people. And I wish, and I'm sure CSE wishes, that there were more support for training people up on how to use renewable technologies, for example, because that's kind of where we need to go with this. So it's a real shame that there hasn't been more support for it. But I will move on. Okay. So once you've done your audit, you've collected all of your data, and you've got a really good understanding of what you need to do, you've consulted with the building users as well, you can kind of start putting some of these things into place. And this is just a basic step-by-step way to approach it, what you're doing. But you've got your baseline data, you've collected your bills, your meters, any other kind of smart meter data that you've got. So you've got a really good understanding of how the building uses its energy. You then use that to support your audit. And then you can consider, what options can I take here? And that is also, it's worthwhile thinking about when you might want to take action on some of these aspects as well, because some energy efficiency changes or improvements can be really disruptive. So if you've got a whole summer of event after event after event, that might not be the best time to do it. Equally, if you know that where you are is prone to lots of windy, stormy weather, you don't want to do your roof in the middle of winter. Those kind of things you might want to think about. So that's where you would prioritize some of your actions. So as we sort of said at the start, with that kind of rung on the energy hierarchy, thinking about things that you can do straight away. Can you fit those heavier curtains? Can you just have a meeting or a catch-all email to everyone who uses your community space to tell them that, you're really hoping that you can reduce your energy bills and you're really wanting to make a difference. And hopefully that will mean that they can use the building in a better way as well. Okay, then you can think about making those changes. You can perhaps get in touch with those installers and make those changes to your energy efficiency. And then you might want to think about reviewing things. So how much difference has your improvements made? And they might be money, they might be feedback from your users, they might be something community-based as well, that more people are using the space. Really reflect on your process as well, and then you can kind of start again as you go around to do the next thing. So it's just quite a nice process if you're kind of feeling a little bit, where do I start with this, because it can be quite overwhelming. We just find it's quite a helpful step-by-step process to consider. Okay, so once you've kind of done all that, you'll probably have a surprising amount of information and notes. But yeah, you might want to, it depends on how each building or group of buildings you're working with, how decisions get made. You might have a management committee, for example. So yeah, sitting down, looking through all those options, calculating the cost, the estimated carbon savings. That's a really nice one to look at as well. And we have like a calculation in our audit where you can do that. And yeah, like I said before, the best time options, given the logistics of how you use the space, funding, which I'll come on to in a moment as well. So yeah, have a good think once you've gathered all of your data, you've done your audits, you've chatted to everyone about what the next kind of step or steps are. So with audits, we obviously have our own one, which we call a basic. That doesn't mean that it's not useful, but it's just a good first step. You don't need to have any prior background in buildings to do this. If you did want to kind of take it to another level or a next step, you can also get professional building audits done, and they might be a bit more detailed. They might have sort of design aspects to them as well, and they might even have like risk assessments involved, which our survey doesn't. So there's a link here where you can find local audits. They really range in price, which is kind of astounding. Some of them are thousands of pounds, some of them are a few hundred. So make sure you really understand what that person is proposing they will do before you pay them, essentially. Okay, energy performance certificates. So you might be aware of EPCs in your own home, but they also belong to community spaces as well. And they're called display energy certificates. So each building will have to have one of these by law, and it will have showing the building's use, their carbon emissions, and sort of a list of energy improvements as well. So this is kind of what they look like, kind of similar to our more domestic ones as well. And it depends on the size of your building as to how often these assessments have to happen. You can look them up online. typing in the postcode or the address, and you can find those. You can find out how old they are. You can find out whether you need a new one. And again, this link, which we'll share, will help you to find a local assessor who can either redo or look at the display energy certificate for you and potentially advise you further. So we do recommend, if you haven't done our kind of basic survey, to do it. We get a lot of feedback that it's a really useful exercise. And it's really good to do with people who use the building as well, if you can find a couple of willing volunteers. But just to know that there are other ways that you can find out more about your building as well. So you can pay for that additional audit to be done, and you can also look at things like the display energy certificates as well. So yeah, that's just another source of information, if you like. Okay, so involving the right people. As I said before, you probably come from lots of different sort of ways that the building is owned or managed. So just making sure you've kind of included as many people as possible. And it's often quite a good idea to kind of publicize what you're doing, because the members of your community will probably be interested. They might be community members who use the space. They might be local tradespeople or even builders who might understand buildings in a certain way and have a certain skill. So it's really important to kind of bring the community with you as much as possible. You might have someone in the community who is really good at writing funding bids or applications. You might have someone who's got a background in, roofing, or you might have someone who understands thermal imaging really well. So yeah, it's just, as much as possible, try and reach out to your community on this, and don't feel like you have to do it on your own. And a bit like Louise was saying at the beginning, often people who look after community buildings are these kind of unsung heroes. So try as much as possible to get support where you can. And yeah, publicize your ideas in a local newspaper or, parish magazine, or get a mention somewhere where people are going to hear about what you're doing. You might be surprised at who kind of knocks on your door and says, oh, I'd like to help, or I've got this idea, or I've got this link with this fund, or I've got this link with this building firm, whatever. Yeah, as much as possible, just try and let the community know what you're up to and why. And that why will probably be what gets them involved, because they want people to use the space more. They want it to be more affordable for people to hire the space, those sorts of things. Okay. So funding, always a challenging topic. There is funding out there for energy efficiency measures, not least Thrive, obviously, but it can be a bit of a sea to try and understand and get that funding. So I fully appreciate that it's not easy. There's a couple of sort of suggestions here. There's a new grant that's being run by Groundwork that CSE will have some involvement with, but it's funding for energy assessments, so audits, but also capital costs. So it's actually quite rare to have a fund that will give you money to buy X aspect of energy efficiency, insulation, whatever it is. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. It's only just kind of kicked off, so they're very much just in the kind of expression of interest phase, but that could potentially be quite interesting. There are some eligibility criteria around it, but yeah, certainly have a look at that. We at CSE have a spreadsheet, a funding spreadsheet that we update a few times a year, and it's kind of categorized by whatever project it is you're wanting to run, and we have a community buildings kind of category within that. So it might be worth having a look through that as well, and we can send that out. We also have a guidance document on funding for your community space, which we can send out, and this considers things like loans, crowdfunding, and other ways that you can raise funds as well. It's a really nice guide. I'd really recommend looking at that. There are a couple of other links here because I know potentially we might have some attendees from Scotland here, so I wanted to make sure that there was one there. Sounds quite similar to the Groundwork one, but specifically in Scotland. And then Community Energy England. They're another organisation supporting communities with energy efficiency. They have a really good funding page that's updated quite regularly. We only really have the time to update ours once or twice a year, but I know that Community Energy England do theirs a little bit more regularly. So again, have a look through that. Okay, so a couple of other resources that we can share. We've got all of our advice leaflets on anything from kind of cavity wall insulation to roof insulation to engaging your community to running an energy awareness day. Yeah, I'd really recommend having a flick through those. They're all kind of printable, downloadable. As well, if you wanted any leaflets that are specifically around fuel poverty, we have those as well, because as we know, community spaces are often places where people come to either, get services. It might be a food bank or, children's kind of events as well, where you might get lots of families. So if you did want to reach out to your community through the winter, through tougher times, we have lots of fact sheets on how people at home can reduce their energy bills and have warmer spaces to live in as well. So that's just another kind of nice idea for you to use your community space for your community. And then, as I mentioned before, we've got our solar wizard tool, which you're welcome to have a look around, our energy survey, and we've also got a blog that we put up a few months ago now, just kind of consolidating everything that I've said in this session today in sort of 10 or 12 points. So that's quite a nice one as well. Okay, I'm going to be quiet for a moment. And I had hoped that there were some Thrive grantees here who might be willing to just share some of their experiences of energy efficiency in their community space. So I don't know if we've got Tony or Saul here. I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen. Is Tony here? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Did I send you some photos? I can't remember.
I don't think you did, but that's okay. Did you just want to introduce yourself, your community building / space, and how you've found improving its energy efficiency?
Right. We have Debenham Shed, which is affiliated to the UK Men's Shed Association, although it's men and women. And our building is on a community supported farm, and it comprises 4 joined containers. I'll see if I can find a photo in a minute can we share from here?
Yeah, we can make it so you can share. That would be great.
So we got these 4 containers, and they were 3 of them were formed into one big room, and the other one is split into a small galley kitchen and a tool store. And we have a roof overall, which it has a lean-to each side. One side has been converted into a storage space, and the other side is open, and a canopy at the front. Now, I probably won't find these photos, but never mind.
You should be able to share if you did want to.
Yeah. The extension on one side is where we got a grant from Thrive Renewables to install some infrared panel heaters and get some insulation. We use the what's it called? Not Kingspan, the other one, the rigid foam insulation, Celotex, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, as in Grenfell Tower, possibly, or something like that, same firm. Anyway, so we put insulation all around the external walls, and these panel heaters will be mounted. And we have about a dozen heaters in the main part of the hall, which are mostly infrared panel, and they can be controlled by Wi-Fi. So we have a technical wizard constructed a web page so we can see the status of all these heaters, and we can schedule the heating, set maximum temperature and so on. So it's a pretty efficient way of heating. It's quite instant. And, yeah, so we're very grateful to be able to heat the extension when it's completed.
Great. And have you any feedback from any of the users yet, or?
Well, they seem to like the heating. Well, I mean, heating overall, which we got from our council locality budget in the main building, has made a huge difference in winter, because you imagine the containers, even though they have some insulation, do get very cold in the winter, and we used to get very few people coming in the winter. So, but now we get as good attendance more or less as in the summer. So it's been great.
That's great. Cool. Thanks for sharing, Tony. It's great to hear how the fund has sort of landed with some of the communities. Thank you. Great. I didn't know if there was anybody else who wanted to chip in with any of their kind of learnings or anything. Oh, Joe, go ahead.
We had can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We had a grant from Thrive. I'm a town councillor in Liverpool, but I volunteered with the Scout and Guide Hut to they're having a refurbishment project. It's a building about 30-40 years old, and the windows are starting to degrade. It just needs generally refurbishing, but they're finding it's very, very cold. I mean, they're all inclusive groups, so they have quite a lot of disabled children that attend, or children with special educational needs. They were finding it was very cold. So we're sort of doing a project for the whole building, but we had to sort of we need to start with insulation, because there was very little insulation in the roof. They got a small leak in the roof, so we had that sorted first. And the Thrive grant was one of the first grants we got, actually, which has allowed us to insulate all the roof space to bring it up to standard. And we're now applying for other grants for new windows and doors and all those things. And that insulation has only actually been installed this week. It's done. So they're really, really grateful for that. And I actually did the energy audit, which as part of the grant. And when I first looked at it, I thought, oh, this is going to be hard work to do. But actually, when you take it stage by stage, it's not, and it's really, really worthwhile having that audit. And we will use that going forward for every other element in the building, because the cost of the energy is quite high. We're in a relatively low income area, so they can't really increase their fees. So we need to try and get all those costs down. But yeah, it's worked very well for us so far. So hopefully we might be able to look at something for the next round. But I'm also supporting other community groups. And one of my colleagues from the church is on here today, because they're looking at energy efficiency in the church, which is also another one of our community hubs.
Cool. Thanks so much, Joe, for sharing. That's really really great to hear, and I love that the installation came in this week, which is really well timed. Tony, thanks for sharing this. Could you could you point us in what we should pay most attention to?
Yeah, the 4 containers are in the middle.
Right.
The left-hand side is before we enclosed it as a storeroom and woodworking area. So on the left-hand side, where it's currently a lead-to in the photograph, that's now enclosed and got insulation and panel heaters.
Great.
So that's it, roughly.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's great to hear that also men's sheds are just becoming more and more popular. So yeah, thank you for bringing that in. That's great. Cool. Is there anyone else that wanted to share anything? Anything they've done? Hi, yeah, Hilary, go for it.
Yes, I haven't done anything, but just a little tip, which we heard from National Village Hall Network, is just to say, if you're installing solar panels, do contact your insurers, because it's fairly new technology and they're a little bit twitchy about it. One village hall installed it, had the solar panels and the battery storage unit, and the battery storage unit is what's causing them to be twitchy because of the risk of fire. So sometimes they are insisting that it's situated a little way away from the village hall and that it's enclosed with a 60-minute fire retardant covering, whatever. And this village hall didn't know about that, so they had an extra expense on top, which they then had to find funding for. So it's worth including in your initial gatherings of information. Okay.
That's great. Thank you, Hilary. Yeah, really important as things change to think about very important things like insurance. Absolutely. Yeah, sometimes there are those hidden costs. Thank you. Okay, cool. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to share or any other questions? Eleanor, I have read your question in the chat. If it's all right, I might just message you afterwards because I was talking to a colleague about this just yesterday or the day before. So I might message you if that's okay. Tom, did you have something to say?
Yes, I've got the original drawings of our Scout and Guide Hall, which was put up in 1990. And it's got the U values, and I'm just wondering how they compare with what would be considered good practice. The roof is 0.58 watts per square meter per degree centigrade, and the walls are 0.558. Tricky question, but I mean, how does that stand?
I'm afraid I'm going to be very, very clear. I wouldn't be able to answer that question. You'd be very welcome to email me and I can ask colleagues who've got more information on
Okay, what's your email address?
I will put it in everyone who comes today will get an email. And
Fine.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wouldn't want to even start.
Because we've got I'll throw in another thing that might be useful for everyone. There is an outfit in organisation in Swindon called the National Self-Build and Renovation Centre. The initials there will get you the website. If you National Self-Build and Renovation Centre. It's a large shed with lots of static displays, which include a couple of houses, and it goes down to smaller exhibitions of heating and lighting and so on. And you go there during the working week. They hand you a barcode read. You go around and barcode what interests you. But they also run courses, and yeah, those can be very useful because you've then got some of the stands are manned, and we used them to identify the suppliers for our far infrared heating, which was Herschel. We're very pleased with that. It's controlled remotely. I'm going to try. I can switch it on and off from my iPhone.
Right.
But one of their events, I asked you could have one-to-one consultancy, and was telling them about my home, which is timber frame 1980. Right. We've got solar panels. We've got double glazing. The loft installation is mostly our camping equipment. So I said, what else can we do? And he said nothing.
Okay.
The nothing comes from the walls, which are, you got the brick, you got the air gap, you've got the plywood, you've got the timber frame, and you've got, a couple of inches of rock wall. You can't do anything else. Unless you start putting stuff on the inside or the outside, but then you have this horrible risk of getting a point in the structure where the temperature goes below the dew point, water condenses out, and you have mold. And so I'm throwing that in as a precaution. For goodness sake, if you look at cavity insulation, make sure you're dealing with someone who really knows what they're doing, because we have an example here with a friend who conventional brick, could be brick and brick or brick and bleach, but normal cavity, filled it up with one of these wonderful patent installations, and they had terrible mold, and the only thing they could do was to take the cavity insulation out. That's, well, how on earth do you do that? He said, well, we had to take out bricks and rake it out. So there's a horror story for everyone to remember.
No, it's good. Thank you, Tom.
I mean, that's the one thing you learn if you go on the courses at run at Swindon. They go into this quite thoroughly.
That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's really important to make sure, as we were talking about, like the installers and all the rest of it, make sure you're getting someone who really knows what they're doing and are considering things like that. No, we've definitely had a few more horror stories, unfortunately, about when that can go wrong. Thank you. Okay. Oh yeah, and Amy's just dropped a link in. Did you want to say what that was, Amy? That's great.
Yeah, just on the back of what you were saying there, Tom, there's a really great centre in Llanelli in Wales called the Towie Centre, and they run like an introduction to repair, maintenance and energy efficiency, but specifically in old and traditional buildings, which is really, really useful. And yeah, they talk quite a lot about cavity insulation and how when that's used with a traditional building, it's often it's not suited at all. So yeah, there definitely are some horror stories, but I attended the course myself back in November and I'd really, really recommend it.
Are you going to put the details of that in the email?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can do. And I've just popped the link in the chat as well for you. But yeah, I can include that in email too.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Amy. Okay. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming along. I hope it was useful. It was really nice to hear from some of the Thrive grantees and how it's made a difference. And yeah, just to share your tips and tricks is really, really helpful. So yeah, as I said, all of this will go out in an email, but we will also put the recording and the slides on our page. We have like a project page for Thrive at CSE, so they'll all be there as well. Yeah, and we can make sure this is noted in the email that goes out. But if you've got any further questions, please just let us know. There's a huge staff team here at CSE who are often really, really happy to help. So yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, and yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks all.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.